Good morning, everybody. We're thanking you for joining us at Coffee Talk, where we drink coffee and talk about something that's gone before and something that's coming ahead. And so last Sunday, we talked about story. It's our last practice in the Bless practices as we go through the letters of Bless. And we talked about how we should know our story and be able to tell it. But speaking of story, what are some of the best stories that you guys that come to mind, or the stories like that just a story of something that happened to you, or a story of a novel, or a story of a movie? What comes to mind when you think of story? There's so many options, right?
I don't know why, but for some reason I always love somewhere between romantic comedy or like in my teens, I always went to like Shakespeare tragedies. I don't know why. But yeah, like
Do you have a favorite?
Hamlet is up there.
Okay.
Just because he's so tortured and yet he's kind of wrestling through it and trying to figure it out, and
Yeah.
it's a terrible story, but like
Yeah.
but you can empathize with him, and you can kind of understand where he's coming from in his insanity. And yeah,
So I'm
good
not
story,
as
too.
complex of a story person because I didn't know the good literature stories. I knew the Hardy Boys and fun
Yeah.
fiction books, you
Yeah.
know.
Are
So-
you saying Shakespeare's not part of the Michigan curriculum?
It's maybe, well, I was focused on math and science, so I didn't really pay attention until
And wrestling.
and wrestling. In college, let me tell you a story about that.
Yeah.
Anyways, in college, I read probably my first play, like fully read it. Besides Romeo and Juliet, I think I read it in high school, but Oedipus Rex. And I was fascinated by it. So I should probably go back and read some more of these. I've heard about the story, but
Yeah.
those are
but
some good stories.
I will say
yeah.
it's been a very long time. The ones that I keep coming back to, though, are the ones that inspire and motivate and are enjoyable to listen to, like Narnia,
Yeah.
which you alluded to, but like Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
I keep coming back to that one.
Yeah.
There's
Oh, so
another
good.
there's series about Ranger's Apprentice, and it's archery.
Oh,
it's just
tell me about that
enjoyable.
one. Yeah, yeah. How about for you? Do you?
Well, I'm trying to think through the story. I'll have to tell my wife tonight as to why we are no longer have our oldest daughter, because this morning she told me she does not like The Princess Bride.
Whoa!
And it's like
Sacrilege!
inconceivable.
Obviously, that's a story we all know. I hope you know it too. But
No, she's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
This is as we were driving her off at school
Yeah.
this morning. She was talking about one movie she likes, and
So why doesn't she like Princess Bride?
yeah, it just didn't grab her
Oh,
attention.
interesting.
We
Yeah.
watched it together over spring break,
Mhm.
and as a family, it's like, it's time for you kids to experience
Yeah.
Princess Bride. And they're like,
Oh, yeah.
that's it? Really?
Oh, we had
just
that moment,
underwhelming.
and I think my kids were a little more receptive, which is interesting because I didn't
Right.
expect them necessarily to be.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I think sometimes if I giggle at it,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
kids are able to receive it a little bit better.
Yeah. And you
Right.
need to be set up too. I remember watching a kind of a parody movie that everybody was playing up, and then so I was all excited about this movie because I was thinking about what I like, and then I watched it. I'm like, so I could get that she
Was it
might.
Napoleon Dynamite?
Well, I don't even think I ever watched the full thing of that. I just thought it was so stupid. maybe I had to because I showed it to you.
That is like, see, I love a good dumb comedy.
Yeah.
Like just
Yeah.
but if you hit that one slightly wrong,
Yeah.
it doesn't land. But
Totally.
if you get it, like, oh, that's actually really really good. Like,
See, and it doesn't even have to actually be a good plot. Like, I also love a really smartly written comedy where you like watch it and you like lots to laugh at, and then you watch it again, you're like, oh, I missed that joke.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
good, and,
Yeah.
and,
Right.
and when you can see it, so that's more my speed.
Okay.
And Princess Bride has a lot of
Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Not that it's the best movie
Yeah.
ever. I really I don't know that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I
It
could
just
come up with a favorite,
It
but-
just hit our kind of age group, maybe at the same. Oh, sorry, I'm putting you in my age group, but Cheryl and I, like Cheryl, she could probably quote half of that movie. But here's why I wanted to kind of talk about that. As we're talking about stories, you have certain stories you connect with. I have certain stories I connect with. You have certain stories. Some of them are interconnected, and some of them are a little different for our unique personalities. But we talked about this not on Sunday, but I wanted to make the connection this morning that when wherever I am and the people God has put me with, my story is He's put me with my story in that situation. And so my story will connect in a way that maybe no other follower of Jesus would.
Yeah.
So for us to know our stories and be ready to tell them when the people are ready to hear them, when it comes up, hey, tell me about you, you know, and tell it with Jesus as the hero, that'll connect in a way that, you know, maybe yours won't, or it'll be an intro into a spiritual conversation where they might want to know more, and we're ready to tell more. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, like, on that note, one of the things that back in college, I was part of like all 4 years, a street ministry that would go out. I can't remember if it was Friday or Saturday night. It was a long time ago. It was back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd go out on the evening. We'd spend a few hours downtown Vancouver just sharing the gospel with people. And in a number of different ways. Sometimes we'd like walk around East Hastings, hand out socks. Sometimes we'd be doing little skits and stuff. And one time, while a group was sharing like a dramatic presentation on the street, I was watching part of the crowd. We got to build, crowds attract crowds. And a guy comes up and says, okay. And we got talking, whatever. And at one point he just said to me, tell me your story. And I was like so unprepared.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we had these like scripts of, okay, I'll talk about this or this or this, or talk, connect it with the drama or connect it with this verse, and it's like, oh, you just want to know about me and how this relates, and it was like, it took me a minute to realize even what he was looking for. He was just looking for a personal connection, and it was like, and I would offer like, which is kind of funny. It's like all the things we should have been prepared for was to talk about our, how I relate to Jesus and the differences, but it was like. Just in the moment, totally caught off guard. But and I will say, of all the years of ministering in different ways, it almost never happens. But church, we'd hate for you to be like like me and have that moment where someone does ask for your story and you're just not ready and not prepared or how to share it. So it's good to know.
Well, and like doesn't Peter say, always be prepared to give a reason for the hope.
To give the reason
right?
for the hope that you have, but do it with gentleness and respect, I think, is how that ends. And it's a beautiful thought.
That's what I really love, like, about the simplicity of what you brought forward, Jeff, was like, here's 3 things. Just remember 3 things. Like this and this, and like, you can tell a lot of people your story, because immediately my instant reaction if somebody just asked me that same thing of like, well, I don't have an interesting story. It's just I grew up here and I did this and I'm this and I'm a dad. Great, that's boring, right?
That life before Jesus bit is so short,
right? But like, or even just that, like, we feel like the story that we bring is it's got to be exciting. It's got to change this person's life, right? Well, no, that's not necessarily always the point. Even when Jesus spoke and taught through parables and all these things, that he was kind of just pushing the needle a little bit more. And that's what I think you were trying to say. You give a reason for the hope that you are trusting in through the story that you bring, right? Before and during and after.
Exactly. And people won't usually ask it that way.
No.
What's your story?
No, it was
they'll
really
just say, hey, what do you do or whatever, and then you can kind of just start talking about that a little bit, and then eventually bring in some of but to know your story before how you met and after Jesus is just so helpful in all of that.
I think the far more common thing is to let it leak out in bits, especially if it's people we have an ongoing relationship with, right? Like the whole point of this is your neighbors who hopefully you see more than once a month, right? Like in the passings of life, comings and goings, you're out mowing the lawn, all those things,
right?
As you bless, as you do this,
practices.
you're doing life next to each other. But to let it come out in appropriate little ways here and there, right? Like,
and then a lot of times people might ask, so why do you go to church?
Right.
And there's your in.
There's a great question.
To tell a little bit about your story. Oh man, I didn't used to. Whatever it is, or I used to when I was a kid. I didn't like it, but man, now it's my whatever. But to rehearse our story, and I didn't talk as much about rehearsing the story of the Bible, but as Christians, as people who follow Jesus, that's probably, I wanted you to be ready for people, to bless them, because we bless them with our story. Generally, first, that's what they're ready for. But the story of the Bible, rehearsing that is good for us. It's good for us as a community to do. It's good to be ready to be able to talk about your faith in a comprehensive. This is kind of the story of the Bible, so really want to encourage you to be practicing the story of the Bible as well.
Which is what the video kind of was about.
Yes.
Like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Here's the whole story of the
I
Bible.
wanted
Totally.
to see that you could do that. Yeah.
Which was great, because like you think about rehearsing the story, I think of like Stephen's speech right before they kill him, which was like
Acts 7, right?
right, yeah, all of Scripture.
Mhm.
But it's like that's great for a Jewish context, but for some of us in Canada, how do we, we don't necessarily see the same themes, but there's maybe a starting point.
Yeah.
Not that you'd go
Yeah,
memorize those verses, but that's
Yeah.
not a bad way to,
Oh,
because
for
it kind
sure.
of frames it out, right?
Mhm.
In an interesting way.
Yeah, actually, that's really helpful. Acts 7, Stephen's speech. Peter tells speeches as well
Yeah.
that tell the story
Yeah.
in Acts 2, and then Paul tells his own story a lot too. We didn't even get into there's so many places we could have gone for story, but
Can I ask a question,
Yeah.
which you might not be ready for? Is there a reason that John and Dave put story as the last S?
oh, I think so. We tend as Christians to be trained in evangelism, to kind of do what you said in the 90s, that we would go on the street and tell the 4 spiritual laws, or like, do you know where you're going to go to when you get to heaven? People have really don't like that. Like in our culture now, people they just don't sell me anything.
Right.
People are selling stuff all the time, and
Yeah.
that's what we're kind of trying to sell Jesus, which we know we're not. We have the best thing available, but if you really want to influence people, you understand the culture, and the culture is that's not the way people respond to facts and to reality is anymore, or I don't know, at least now. And so he's saying these blessed practices are like, let's focus on blessing people, loving people, and inviting them into something great. And so instead of starting with, do you know you're going to hell?
Yeah.
Like, start with blessing them,
Yeah.
and then as you love them, you invite them through loving, right? I remember talking to somebody who was, they were always like ready with apologetics.
Yeah.
Apologetics is having a reason for your faith, and so they're always ready. And then they realized, as they had these terrible interactions with people, I'm never gonna argue somebody into the kingdom. But
Yeah.
I will love them into the kingdom, and I think that's what the idea is. It's loving people into the kingdom. And we're actually going to talk about this on Sunday as we wrap up last. But yeah, I do think there's a reason, and it's not that it has to be last. It's just that, hey, let's focus on, do I love this person?
Yeah.
Do I really love
Yeah.
this person? Whether they receive Christ or not, do I love him? Because that's how
Yeah.
Jesus feels.
And
And if
what-
I feel that way, they're going to be much more receptive and ready.
And what is the end goal? Like, the end
Yeah.
goal sometimes for us is, I got to tell my story. And if I've told my story, hands off, I'm
Yeah,
done,
then I'm
right?
done. Yeah, and that's
I don't
not the-
have to love that person. And
Yeah.
I think that's also what this has been challenging in me, is there's a larger picture there that God actually is bringing this person's life around, but it's got to be wholehearted and whole life and whole encompassing, and it's got to lead that person, like Romans says, his kindness leads us to repentance,
Yeah.
right? Not just, give it to him, right? 'Cause-
Well, I mean, yeah, all good, but bless is only spelled one way. So, unless you're gonna, I don't know how you.
Well, I think he
but
meant
it could
there's
be
2 S's,
There's
so-
2 S's. No, I get that, but
Yeah.
I think you could look at the serving as like almost a softening, if you will, right? When someone is loved through service, for so many people, that's a gateway to going, okay, so why is this person so nice? Like, why is this person not like everybody else I meet? Or I think more practically, as we serve together, and even though the focus is on serving our neighbors, but as we, come together with them in that, whether it's something we do for them or something we do with them, right? Like if I'm helping my neighbor build his fence,
Oh, yeah.
that's usually something we do together.
Yeah.
boy, what an opportunity
Yeah.
in that to even let your story leak out
Yeah.
in really
Yeah.
not targeted ways, but just natural ways,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
You know, talk about whatever life of your small group is like, whatever came up in the week with someone at church or whatever, you know, in ways it comes out.
Can I share a story about helping a neighbor?
Mm-hmm.
No,
So
we're
the-
talking about Serve right now.
It's a story. so I was helping a neighbor do something,
Yeah.
and we were working away, and like I was kind of feeling in a bit of a goofy mood, so I started singing, but like singing goofily, and the same way that like
You never do that at church. I don't understand.
the same way
this.
that sometimes people who are singing national anthem,
Uh-huh.
oh say
Yeah.
can you, right? And
For those of you, when I said he doesn't do that, but like in our office, he's always doing this. So okay, go ahead.
so I just started. I don't even remember what I was singing.
Yeah.
I was just being silly. We're working away, and he's like, "Man, don't quit your day job." All right. Good to know.
Did he know what your day job is?
No, at the time, no. He didn't.
There you go.
So
Okay.
That's awesome.
That actually made a good moment. So
Oh, that's great.
he's a good buddy.
Yeah.
That's great.
Huh. Well, so we just hope that you're thinking about your story, the story of the Bible. You know, the story of our church. We're going to be telling that throughout, at least as we celebrate our 50th anniversary this year. We're planning a celebration for that. So there's all these stories, and Jesus is the hero of the biggest story, of the story of why we're all here. And so that's really what we want. We want to introduce people to Jesus because we love him and he loves us, and he's the best thing you could possibly have. And so this is all kind of ways that we can love people and share the story. So hope you're pondering all this. As we look ahead, there's a couple things coming up. One is this Sunday, and that is, you want to tell us about what's the deadline on Sunday?
The deadline. Bless, we're wrapping it.
Oh, okay, another one. Actually, no.
Just trying to
it's not
keep
the
Jeff on
deadline
his
on
toes.
Bless. No, it's
No,
not.
Bless keeps going,
Bless keeps
'cause
going, but we're gonna wrap up our. Yeah.
We've been inviting people to partner with and donate to the Okanagan Valley Crisis Pregnancy Center?
Pregnancy Counseling Center.
Pregnancy Counseling Center. Thank you.
Oh,
Like,
OVPCC.
Yeah.
that's
.com.
This is why we have Kevin insert graphics
Yeah.
down below. Just look,
Yeah.
don't listen. Anyways, but the Baby Bottle Brigade is wrapping up this Sunday for another year, for 2024. And so if you took a baby bottle home to fill with some money, please bring it back this week. If you want to give online, you can do that as well through their website. But that concludes with Father's Day, which is this Sunday.
Yep.
Yay.
Yep. Reminder, it's Father's Day Sunday. So.
You know, I do. Yeah. I was gonna. We've made
tell-
such a thing
were you gonna
about
tell a
dads.
story?
Don't forget Mother's Day.
Yeah, I know.
And
We don't. I don't think we
it's
need to
funny
do that.
how I don't feel like I need to be reminded it's Father's Day because
Yeah. So that's this Sunday. Another thing that we're looking forward to is in a few. Well, sorry. Can you tell us what's ongoing in June, and then what the last one is? You know, what we're excited about.
So every Sunday in June, we wanted to just get together. Man, it is nice out here, so that's why we're out here, and so that's what we're trying to kind of capitalize on, but continue that sense of fellowship and connectivity and eating together. So every Sunday in June, we are heading down to the Nut Farm, and right after church at about 12:30. And just gathering people together. We've kind of just sat in a circle, you know, not far from the parking lot, kind of in our little grassy area, just to hang out and be together. And so that's every Sunday in June. But the last one is an exciting one as well too. They're all exciting.
Yep.
But the last one is a very exciting one because we'll be having some baptisms that day. We'll hear some testimonies throughout the morning. But when we head down there for the picnic, kind of together time, we will be dunking some people in the lake, and they will be sharing the fact that they are publicly declaring that I am a follower of Christ. And so every Sunday in June, we will be heading down there, and we will be gathering together in the grassy area, and so we can be looking forward to that and enjoying that together. But just very excited for those baptism candidates. So.
Just to jump off of that a little bit, It is a long weekend, so there are 2 parking spots at the Nut Farm. I almost said Nutcracker. I don't know why. Talking
That's
about
what
stories,
you need.
I guess.
That's what you need when you go to the Nut Farm.
So that's one of the reasons that's a good spot for this on the long weekend. We have 2 parking spots. You might want to get there early. We just really want you to be there. So yeah, I think that's everything we need to let you know that's coming up. And so we're excited to see you on Sunday. Hope you have a great week and enjoy the sun. Have a great week.